DANIEL AKROYD'S REVENGE. Chapter 8. "Daniel?" The lad looked up from his work. Mr. Mather sounded agitated. "What is it, sir?" "I thought they told me West had promised to be in touch afore t'end of the week." The lad nodded agreement, put his scraping tool down, and picked up an oily rag. "That's right, Mr. Mather, he did," he responded. "Well, he hasna been. I reckon we'd best chase him up. I've 2 machines standing idle. We need to pin him down. Sooner we get job done, sooner we get our cash. Do you want me to go and see him tonight?" "No, it's Friday, now. He'll be going home early. Lazy bastard don't work at weekends. Agin his religion, he says." "I don't mind going on my own, Mr. Mather. There's no need for you to be wasting your time." "No, we'll go together. You show me the way. I'll do negotiating. He's a tricky bugger from what I've been told." Daniel nodded again. "I'll get me hat and coat." He took off his work apron, hung it over his workbench vise, and went to the row of hooks on the wall to pick up his outer clothing, a smile on his face. "Right, Daniel, let's be off. We'll catch omnibus to Stevenson Square off Howdham Street, and then one up Howdham Road." They were soon out of the factory and making their way on to Chapel Street. A small crowd of people were waiting at the omnibus stop. "Bloody hell!" William exclaimed. "Who'd have thought so many people could afford bus and not be working?" Daniel remained quiet. He was working and still couldn't afford to travel on an omnibus. The thought passed through his head that perhaps he should ask for a pay increase. William stuck his hand out as the horse-drawn double-decker approached. They were the last passengers on the boarding platform, and the conductor stuck his hand out for payment as he pulled the leather cord to ring the bell to signal the driver to move the horses into action. "Have they any pennies on there, lad?" Daniel looked at his employer for a brief moment. He had the idea this might be another test. Either way, he had no money apart from the penny Aunt Rose had sewn into his jacket lining for emergencies. He shook his head. "I'll see thee upstairs," William told the conductor. "I needs to find me wallet." The conductor grimaced, thinking passengers should have learnt by now they should have the right change ready when they boarded, but he didn't bar their way. The omnibus wended its way down Chapel Street and swung left onto Victoria Street, much to William's concern. He'd expected it to swing right and then left, to make its way up Fennell Street past the old collegiate church, which was now the cathedral, Manchester having been made a diocese of the Church of England in 1847, and granted city status in 1853. At that point, the conductor puffed his way upstairs to collect their fares. "I thought this bus went into Manchester." The conductor looked at William as though he had no sense. "Nay, lad, we terminate at Victoria Railway Station, as it plainly states on front and side of vehicle in great big letters. That'll be 2pence each, please." "2pence each? That's no but daylight robbery. I usually pay a penny to Howdham Street." "2pence per person per trip is the fare. It's an express service. Limited stop to get people to their station on time. Highly efficient and all it be, or it would be, if there were less traffic on road. Far too many middle-class folks with pony and traps clogging up road and filling it with horse shit, if you ask me." William Mather shook his head at the conductor's blatant class prejudices and contradictions, feeling extremely exasperated. "There you are," he said sharply, handing over the coppers. "I won't be travelling with you again, mark me words." "I hope not," the conductor thought, but he kept it to himself and smiled patiently as his passenger stood up to disembark. Young Daniel allowed himself a smile and winked at the conductor sympathetically as he passed. "Right, lad, I reckon we mun walk from here. I can't afford lavish expenses. Let's get a move on." "All right, Mr. Mather, but we'll cut up this way onto Swan Street. We'll soon be up Oldham Road." "Have you nae bread left, our Susan? There's fresh bread in oven ready to be picked up after t' mills finish, Emma. Do they want a loaf?" "Aye, a 2-pounder. I'll pick it up just after 6. How's your mother?" "She's fine, Sue. Still working hard, as she always has." The spinner finished her tea and replaced the cup in the saucer. Reet gradely that, Susan. I'll see thee at 6. Susan nodded and began to clear the table, as Emma began to leave, to make her way back to the mill after the afternoon break. "Emma, can I have a quick word before you go?" The lass turned round at the sound of the voice. "What is it, Connie, love?" "I just wanted to thank you for being so understanding." Emma frowned. "How do they mean, Constance?" "Well, you know, about Daniel and me." "Let me tell you summat, young Connie O'Donnell. Me and our Daniel go back a long, long time. In fact, we go back longer than either of us can remember. We grew up together, and we had all kind of adventures together. I love him, and that's a fact. I love him more than I'd love me own brother if scarlet fever hadn't got poor lad. I'd stand by him if he were done for murder, which he ne'er will, 'cause he's so loving and gentle and so kind. I want our Daniel to be happy, and I know you make him happy. Thee aren't made for him, and he's made for thee. End of story." "Well, that's a right rum do, Daniel." The lad and his employer were walking down the towpath of the Rochdale Canal. They'd been to the Beehive Mill, and asked to see Nathaniel West. Much to William's disappointment, the woman at the front office told them he wasn't in work. She'd shown them up to the 5th floor, and introduced them to Mr. Jamieson, the mill superintendent. He'd informed them the last time he'd seen West was on the previous Monday evening at 6:30, when he himself had finished work, this being the night young Daniel met him. William had asked if he had the authority to sanction the work in his employer's absence, but Jamieson said he hadn't. Then he come out with a statement that had essentially made William worried. "To be quite frank with you, Mr. Mather, I'm surprised Mr. West is even thinking about putting in new machinery. I don't believe we have the demand for it. Trade is very bad at the moment, unless he knows something I don't. I'm looking at laying off hands over the next few weeks." He'd locked on to William's eyes and then backtracked, fearing he might have said too much. After all, confidence between clients and suppliers could be all important. "Maybe that's why he's not been into work. He's probably chasing new orders. He's quite a salesman when he's a mind to concentrate on the job in hand." William Mather's eyebrows had raised a good half-inch at this juncture. "Good salesman, talented bloody bullshitter more like," he thought to himself. "And you're not doing so bad thyself on that front, Mr. Jamieson." Out loud he'd said, "I'll wish you good afternoon, Mr. Jamieson. Come on, our Daniel. I reckon we're wasting precious time here." Daniel had merely nodded and smiled his quiet smile once more. All was going well from his point of view, and he was sure William would soon find another customer for his machines in the absence of West. "Mr. Mather, can I suggest we return by the canal? I'd like you to meet some friends of mine, and I'll treat you to one of the best cups of tea in Manchester." "Your treat, Daniel? Are you sure?" The lad nodded. "In that case, lad, I'm going to have a look at your pay. You shouldn't be able to afford to treat your boss. I get special—" William Mather laughed aloud. Daniel looked and felt flabbergasted. He slapped the lad on the back. "Only testing, Daniel, only testing. I'll pay for tea." "No, I'm not serving you, and that's final. Up it." Susan Openshaw stood bracing herself, legs apart, hands firmly splayed on the counter. "I wants a cup of tea, and I'll have a cup of tea. Amy, Amy, come here quick." Daniel and William looked across from their table, their attention attracted by Susan's shouting. Amy Peduzzi and Anna Sutcliffe came rushing out of the kitchen. Anna stopped stock still in her tracks, her eyes riveted on the man stood before her, clearly in shock. "Well, well, you've grown into a right buxom wench, Anna," the would-be customer sneered. "Spend lots of time on your back, do they, lass?" he asked offensively. Daniel suddenly realised who the man was. He'd seen him on his first visit to the Beehive. The man he'd assumed to be an overlooker. "There's nowt for you here, Jed Smith. We don't serve rapists, particularly them what rapes childer," Amy retorted. "Now be off with you, afore I knock your bleeding head off your shoulders." Without another word, she produced a cast-iron ladle from behind her back, swung it by its long wooden handle, and smashed it down on the counter with great force. Jed Smith jumped back like a scalded cat, barely able to remove his fingers off the counter quick enough. "Bastards!" he shouted. "You tossing set of bastards!" "You pathetic little maggot," Amy retorted sharply. "Be off with you, 'cause next time I willna miss. I'll have your head off, God be me witness." Smith brought his head back and tried to spit at her, but failed miserably. The gob of dull green spittle ended up running down his chin. Having displayed his manliness, he turned on his heels and left, walking fast. Hannah Sutcliffe burst into tears. The memory of the torment and hell the overlooker had put her through all those many years before, when she'd first started work in Gibraltar Mill at the age of 12, flooding back into her mind. Amy Peduzzi put her arms around her friend, remembering all too well the sexual torment she too had suffered as a young apprentice at Quarrybank. "Come on, Hannah," she said gently. "We have to be strong, or else he's won. We mustna let ourselves be victims for ever. It's o'er and done with, lass. We have to live our lives for ourselves, and them we love, and we know love us. Jed Smith's nobbut a midden of slimy shit, and always will be. He's no fit to lick your clogs." "Well, I never," William Mather said to Daniel. "Yon women soon sorted him out. What were that all about?" "I don't know, Mr. Mather, but I'll find out." Daniel went over to the counter. Amy and Anna had returned to their work. "What was going on, Susan?" "Jed Smith were an overlooker at Gibraltar Mill when Anna first started working there as an apprentice. He were forcing Anna to have sex with him until Miss Irene Rose found out and sacked him. Anna were barely 12 at time. It don't bear thinking about.